Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing things a little bit differently. We're actually going to skip our usual agenda and jump right in because, well, we need to talk about a staggering statistic that recently sent a massive shockwave to the medical community. We're looking at what happens when modern media, deep human vulnerability, and cold, hard clinical data all collide.
Okay, let's dive into this. 60 million. Think about that for a second. 60 million views generated in just a single month by a January 2025 episode of Joe Rogan's podcast. On that broadcast, actor Mel Gibson claimed a mix of unproven drugs literally cured his friend's cancer. I mean, 60 million views. That is an astonishing reach. To put it into perspective, that easily eclipses a lot of major televised events. But what exactly happens when a medical claim of that magnitude hits an audience that large?
Part 1, the podcast prescription. Tracing the digital shockwave. We're going to track the blast radius of this single broadcast, straight from the digital studio right to the doctor's office.
So, the crucial point is defining exactly what we are talking about here, right? The drugs mentioned were ivermectin and benzimidazole. Now, in medical reality, these are scientifically proven antiparasitic medications. They are highly effective at what they're actually designed to do, treat parasites. But on this viral broadcast, they were falsely touted as human cancer cures. The gap between what a drug is manufactured for and what it's being promoted as online, it's huge. And bridging that gap with misinformation has very real, very immediate consequences.
Which brings us to part 2, a massive data spike, the clinical fallout. Let's look at the hard data from JAMA Network Open to see the real-world impact. Now, I really want to emphasize the sheer scale of this research. We aren't just talking about a couple of random anecdotes or localized rumors here. They analyzed electronic medical records from over 68 million patients. That covers 67 different U.S. health systems. With a sample size this massive, we're looking at a definitive, undeniable, nationwide medical trend.
And this brilliantly illustrates that real-world impact. When researchers compared the prescribing rates from the first 7 months of 2024 to early 2025, right after the podcast aired, they saw a massive spike. Prescriptions for these drugs actually doubled across the overall patient population. But look at that second bar. For cancer patients specifically, the prescription rates saw a shocking 2.5 times increase, literally a 2.5x jump. This shows a direct, measurable surge in demand from an incredibly vulnerable group immediately following that broadcast.
The data also revealed exactly who was receiving these prescriptions. The demographic breakdown showed the highest spikes were among white patients, men, and folks living in the southern United States. I want you to just file that demographic data away in the back of your mind for a minute, because it's going to serve as a really crucial public health roadmap for us a bit later.
Part 3, the medical reality, laboratory facts versus viral claims. Let's talk about the severe medical risks associated with this trend.
Let's walk through the actual harsh medical realities here with experts like Dr. Skylar B. Johnson. Step 1, there have been absolutely zero human clinical trials proving these drugs treat cancer. None. Nada. Now, it's true some isolated cell or animal studies show some anti-cancer activity, but that leads to step 2, the dosage problem. Dr. Johnson points out that to get even a tiny anti-cancer effect in a human, the dose you'd need would be completely toxic. And step 3, and this is perhaps the most urgent concern, taking these unproven antiparasitics carries a high risk of interfering with how the body processes actual, proven, life-saving cancer treatments. It is a dangerous gamble.
And honestly, looking at this, it feels like history is just repeating itself. Remember the timeline here? Back in 2021, early in the pandemic, ivermectin was hyped up as a treatment for COVID-19. Despite clinical trials proving zero benefit, the misinformation spread like wildfire, directly causing a massive surge in poison control calls. And now, in 2025, here we are again. We're watching the exact same medication get touted for cancer, with similar massive surges in demand, despite absolutely no evidence.
Part 4, exploiting systemic frustrations, the human element behind the data. If the medical risks are so high, why are people doing this? Let's explore that. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is understanding why people are seeking these treatments out. The root of this isn't just gullibility, right? Listen to this profound insight from Dr. Matthew Facchiani. He points out that it stems from genuine systemic frustration. Patients are completely exhausted by skyrocketing drug prices, endless insurance barriers, and a complex healthcare system. These are very real grievances. When someone is quite literally fighting for their life while simultaneously fighting a broken system, they become incredibly vulnerable.
Lead author Dr. Michelle Rockwell also noted how heartbreaking it is for doctors when a patient passionately demands a drug they truly believe will save them, even when the doctor knows it won't.
And that vulnerability brings us to the most terrifying unknown variable in the whole study. The records showed the prescriptions were written, yes, but they don't tell us how patients are actually taking them. As Dr. Fakiani warns, we don't know if patients are taking ivermectin alongside their proven treatments or, and this is the scary part, in place of them. If people are abandoning real life-saving therapies for a podcast claim, the public health implications are just absolutely dire. Plus, the study notes some folks might be bypassing doctors entirely, buying agricultural versions meant for literal livestock.
Part 5. The Power of Influence, the Double-Edged Sword of Celebrity. Let's flip the script and look at the silver lining here. Let's move to this and see how it builds, because it's a fascinating comparison. On the left, we have what we just analyzed, the Mel Gibson effect, where unproven claims drive toxic risks and clog up the medical system. But on the right, look at the Katie Couric effect. Back in the year 2000, Katie Couric had her colonoscopy broadcast on national TV. That single act of celebrity advocacy drove a massive 20% nationwide increase in proven life-saving screenings. The power to move millions of people is undeniably there. It just depends on what we're moving them toward.
Which brings us right back to that demographic data we talked about earlier. Remember the white patients, men, and folks in the South? Dr. Falciani brilliantly points out that this data isn't just a warning sign, it's a literal map. It essentially shows public health officials exactly which communities are most heavily influenced by alternative media, and therefore exactly where scientifically grounded, trusted messengers are needed the most right now.
And this leads us to a crucial realization to wrap up this entire explainer. Dr. Falciani notes that by the time a patient is sitting in a doctor's office asking for an unproven drug, the clinical encounter is likely way too late and way too brief to undo hours of media influence they've consumed. So, where should public health go next? Well, the answer from the researchers is clear. Health experts have to establish a stronger presence in digital spaces. They need to step up to the microphones, enter the algorithms, and meet people where they already are. That is the only way to combat the viral spread of misinformation before it reaches the prescription pad. Keep that question in mind as you navigate the modern media landscape. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I look forward to exploring the next deep dive with you.